Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Spiritual Spiral. We missed you all last week. Thank you guys so much for hanging in with us. Everything has been crazy up in the air. I am so thrilled, though, that we have a very special guest this week, Alejandra DeLuca. Thank you so much. You are fantastic. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's such a great opportunity to be here with you, and I'm excited and ready for this. Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead, Sari.
No, I was just gonna jump right into it
Yeah.
because I was telling her before we started, we have a couple of mutual friends. So I was really excited to familiarize myself with your work, but I want the audience to know, let us know what you do, what you are all about.
Well, just in the grand scheme,
Yes.
Yeah, all of it.
yeah, I've been in the healing arts for pretty much almost all my life. I started at a really young age. My grandmother was very spiritual. I mean, she was way ahead of her time. I think she would be doing yoga and meditation, and I was very curious about what these meditations were. And she pretty much introduced me to the meditation arts, and I started practicing as a teenager. And then eventually I studied software, but I wasn't too thrilled. I felt that I came here to do something with my hands to help people, and I didn't think it was software, right? Like programming or anything like that. But through software, I actually went out to work first in Mexico, and then I came here to the United States 27 years ago. And in the process of that, between my last years of software, which were my first years of software too, I started a career, and it just served the purpose of getting me out. And I started reading a lot and looking for some answers, I guess, in the late teenage years and young women, as a young woman, then we start like I had a lot of questions. But when I moved to Mexico, I was very curious about this thing that I was gonna do with my hands, and it was like a ghost following me. And my grandmother started me in the healing arts too, and so she was my first introduction to it. And then eventually I became a pranic healer, and then eventually I became a senior disciple in pranic healing and work actively with pranic healing for over 20 years, teaching healing different levels, opening centers in both my country, Mexico, and the whole Caribbean, Suriname, and on and on. So I spent a lot of active time in pranic healing with my teacher, Grandmaster Shoa Koksui. Then eventually, because I became a mother, I quit traveling so much. I would be traveling the last 2 3 years of my active career in pranic healing as an instructor or as a leading member. I was traveling every other week, and I had a baby, right? Well, she was a year, 2 years old, and I realized every other week wasn't good for her or for me. So I took a long sabbatical, which I'm still in sabbatical. And that was 5 6 years ago, more maybe, no, 6 years ago. And then in that process, I came across a bunch of stuff that I was aware of, but I was too dedicated to pranic healing. And once I dropped that active part, then I started having all this space for me to study more and to nurture myself and to go into a deeper journey of healing. And in that process, I went to plant medicine, in ayahuasca. I went to breath work, and I got myself certified. Absolutely loved breath work, because it was just like, what? Like, people can just have this experience at once. And then I could use it with my healing. And I had amazing, powerful realizations with breath work. And then I started developing more things or studying more things. So generally speaking, I'm a healer. I do a lot of meditations. Leading meditation is pretty much one of my passions, and lead ceremonies. And I'm not talking necessarily plant medicine ceremonies, but ceremonies for women, ceremonies like full moon ceremonies or events and new moon ceremonies and rituals of passages and blessing ways and the whole thing. And healing is pretty much my passion, but still learning. Still learning.
As we all are. Yeah, I mean, so, but you also have your own business now, Malibu Meditation, correct?
Yes. I mean, is Malibu Meditations Journey, and so Journey being my studio, and this is the studio right where we are right now, and this was a long dream come true. Ever since I was maybe 20 years old, I knew I was gonna have a space, and it never came true. I was too busy traveling on and on, or opening centers for pranic healing, or helping other people do their mission. But in that process of going into my own, when I left the active portion of pranic healing, I remained doing pranic healing as a healing. But in that process, actually through the medicine, it was very clear to me that I had to open this center to be able to bring people into the meditations my way, into my studio my way, because I was very picky with the energy. If I'm gonna have you sitting in meditation with me, I wanted to make sure that I could provide you with an ideal place to heal, to find well-being in that time when you're doing meditation. So I I created a place that I consider beautiful and powerful, because this place is also is being biohacked completely. Like I got the help of Luke Story and Brian Hoyer, and the walls are treated, the floor is treated, we're grounded, EMF is completely out of here. So when you come here, you come to this sanctuary, to this haven, Faraday haven and an energy haven, I think. And it's a very special place here in Malibu. And yeah, this is my baby.
Wow. And when you first started getting, realizing that you had a gift, you had, some power that you wanted to use to help people, was there any kind of inciting incident that made you really discover it, whether it was a dream or a traumatic incident, or, just like your ancestors coming to you saying this was what you're supposed to do?
Wow. But those are three things you mentioned that are important. There was no traumatic incident. Ever since I was a baby, not a baby, I mean, ever since I was very little, I knew I was gonna do something for other people. And as a kid, I thought maybe I was crazy, right? And I had 4 or 5 incidents about 7 to 9 years old in which I didn't know I was spontaneously doing a meditation, and I didn't know what it was, but I just kind of was abstracting myself from here, from the house from the city, and I just kept something kept me going farther and farther in my thoughts until I reached a point in which I couldn't answer anymore the question that was being asked, which is, where is the house, where is the country, where is the planet, on and on. And then I had an experience of sort of exploding in light and colors, and it freaked me out. I was raised in a country that's 98% Catholic, and I was raised Catholic, so I didn't think I had that answer. And so I kept it quiet, right? I kept it quiet, and I thought, well, maybe I'm going to be a doctor, maybe I'm going to study psychology, but mostly doctor. I wanted to be an obstetrician because I wanted to bring people to the light. In Spanish, we talk of a woman giving birth, a woman giving light. So that's something that was always there with me. And I remember this one day I was working in software, and I was really good at it. The reason I studied software is because I wanted something that was faster, and at that time to become an obstetrician in my country was like years and years. So this one day I was programming. I must have been at that time maybe okay, I'm 52 years old, right? So you understand, because sometimes people don't get it, like the years. But I'm 52 years old, and my grandmother had great genes. But when I was about 19, 20 years old, I was already working in software. And I was working on this program, and I felt like, okay, that's the moment I knew I'm going to do something with my hands, but it must not be programming, because it's going to help other people. And I didn't think that at that time programming was in a place that was going to change people's life, right? And I knew that I was going to do that. So I started asking my grandmother. I started slowly. It was a slow process. I started mostly maybe asking God or asking Spirit, right? Then I moved to Mexico. I got married eventually in 24, 23, 24, and I moved to Mexico because my husband was relocated to Mexico. And when I was there, I was by myself. I had no my family, no my friends, no my culture, and it was only him and I. And so I had a lot of time to kill. So I started reading a lot of metaphysical books um, from a Venezuelan author that was very famous in that world, Connie Mendez. And I was just like it like these books were like just coming to me, and I was just so fascinated by it. So every time I traveled to Venezuela, or when I could, I would call my grandmother and say, look, because she was a Rosicrucian master. And so I would call her and say, what is it? What is it with my hands? What is it that we can do with the hands? And what is it about a teacher or a guru? What is this? Like, I didn't know. So that's when she actively, now beyond meditation, she's actively started to train me. So that was another moment that marked that very strongly. And I knew I was going to find something that was going to define my life. So I was very picky because there was everything in Mexico at that time. And at that time, I was very scared of the word shaman in itself, because growing up in a Catholic country like Venezuela, shaman was like not seen that well, right? So I crossed many things out of my life. And I asked God every night, I said, lead me to the one thing I'm going to do. So it took me forever to find it. And it was in year 92 that I was moving to Miami, that I started it started getting closer to me. I started Silva method, the mind control Silva method. I started studying the pendulums, but the full real school, not just the pendulum itself. And she started taking me to other classes that were a little deeper in spirituality. And when I got to Miami, I took my first pranic healing class. And I knew, when I didn't know English at that time, but I knew when I touched the pamphlet that this was it. And I took the class without knowing English, and I understood everything. And that's the day that someone was in that class, and I was looking at the instructor, and I was in awe. I was like, one day I would like to be that. Like, I would like to be there teaching the class. And the person that was volunteer, like working with me, that person said to me, I don't remember who that person was, and I don't know what, I just went to that class. And that person said to me, you're going to be here for way longer than that person. And indeed, I was in pranic healing for all that time and worked really closely with the teacher. And also in Mexico, when I was in that process of studying, I had yet again one more dream. And in that dream, reading about, the violet flame and the I am presence and Saint Germain and all of these things, I had a dream in which I was being shown some sort of code, and I couldn't understand what the code was. And the voice was said to me, um, you can read it. And I was like, no, I can't. The whole dream was, you can read it, no, I can't, until the voice became very vast and says, yes, you can. And in that moment, this code, it was like a red symbols, like cherry kind of color symbols, they became like gold and in flames. And I had the same experience of exploding in colors. And I woke up from that dream sweating and shaking, and what was that? And so it kind of marked that time in which I was now actively about to become a prana healer and a healer. And so that's when my grandmother started teaching me the healing arts. And then I moved to Miami, and that's actually on July 27th, on July 11th, 1993, I moved to Miami. So that's 27 years.
Wow.
I just wrote about that in my. So, but as a prana healing instructor, one of the things I learned is that everyone has the ability. Like, it's not like you have to be special to become a healer. Like, you have a physical body, that means you have an energy body, that means that you can be a healer of yourself. You can heal yourself, and you can help heal others only if you knew. It's like if you have a clicker with you. Like, I don't have a clicker with me, but imagine this was a clicker. If this was a clicker but you didn't know you had it, so now you know you have it, and now you can click the buttons, and you can create certain effects, and with that help. And so that's, I don't know if that's a long answer to your question.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sari, thoughts?
I actually want to talk about breath work with you because I feel like that is something that has become more popularized recently. There's a whole bunch of different healing meditations, but I feel like recently there's been a lot of attention on breath work. So I want to talk to you and find out more about it, about what it is and the experience that you've had with it and how other people can get involved in it.
Yeah. Well, breath work was fascinating to me. I have, while I was teaching prana healing, I had a lot of students in Venezuela and in Latin America that practice rebirthing, which is a form of breath work. I mean, there's several kinds of breath work. And I was very focused on prana healing at that time, and I needed to be, because it really was a deep study that I went through. So I wasn't really giving it any thought. But when I guess I went to Rhythmia, right, in Costa Rica, and I went to I don't know, I hit a wall. I hit a wall. I was about to become, not yet, but I was close to becoming 50 years old woman, and 40. I was 47, 48, I don't know, and I went there because I felt like I hit a wall, and with what I was doing. And usually people at this age, is when they become spiritual. But I've been in the spiritual world since I was a kid. I mean, 20 years old, right? And so I was like, what? Am I going to now go and work now? Like, my life was inverted. So anyway, I went there, and what I took from my first trip to Rhythmia was breath work. And my experience was pretty odd. Immediately right there, I had a major healing, about personal, but like the men of my life, the most important men of my life, and an experience, like it showed me something really important there. But because I was a healer, I was in awe of how deep it went, even on that very first session. And because of that, I was like, I need to dive into this. I needed to dive more into plant medicine, but that was a bigger thing, a bigger monster that I had to dive in. But I really needed to dive into breath work. So I came back and immediately started researching breath work. And I went to both John Paul Creamy and started like with him doing breath work. And I also took his certification, right? But then that was while I was waiting for Kravitz, the transformational breathwork certification. So because there was not a class coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I had major experiences, but when I went for those first 7 days with the transformational breathwork, we were breathing like the short session in the morning, the short session at nighttime for 7 days, right? And we were doing two main, like an hour long breathing sessions, not 30 minutes, not 20 something minutes, an hour long. And it's like every time you went in there, it's like there's nothing more to find, right? And there was more things coming up. Like there were things that were like, where is this coming from? And I would call my mom and I said, what happened when I was a kid? I mean, they said that maybe there was something that made me like that shocked me, that maybe I fell, and indeed I fell off the bed as a baby.
Mm.
And there were all these like deep realizations. I mean, they put you also to breathe on underwater to kind of heal anything from the pregnancy. I was in heaven. I was like, everyone was crying, and I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. So they said, ask your mom how was the pregnancy, and asked my mom. My mom said it was so beautiful, no problems, nothing. It was the day after when it was like that part of the falling. And I recorded a lot those days because I could see visions about what happens during the breath work, and I was shown like how this is my inner experience of breath work, right? How it's like we have some sort of energy that is like cobwebs inside, that all these emotions get energy of the emotions get trapped in there, and as you're doing the breath work, these are being like tear apart and releasing the emotions out. It's like emotions stuck everywhere. And I had some major healings that after so many years involved in the healing practices, which in my school was pranic healing, and being a direct disciple of Master Shoa, I mean, he was very strict. So we couldn't just go ahead and do healings without healing ourselves. So I think for so long working on my healing, and yet I found things that I never even knew I had inside of me, that put me in front of the mirror, and I was like, whoa. And that made sense, and that it changed me, because you could have a healing experience, but if it doesn't result in a healing, then it's not real healing, right? Like you could have a healing experience, but then it has to, like I was trained that way with Master Shoa, right? Like to certify yourself in prana healing, you have to go through years of presenting real cases. So with you too, like you have to be able to say that if there was a trauma, the trauma is released. So there's a change in becoming better in your personality about something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just humbled by it. I was like, holy cow, there is so much that we can, when you start the healing process, it's not like we started and we finish it. We just finish at that level, but it's like peeling an onion, right? And it's a very humbling process, but it's also a strengthening process. So that's my experience with breathwork. That's why I wanted to be able to facilitate it. And it is just it's not easy to do breath work if you're doing this kind of more holotropic transformational breath work or whatever. It is not as easy because when you're breathing like this, the first thing is your brain is like danger, 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 don't go there, right? But if you go past that, it's like doing cardio. I always say, like I do the Wim Hof method too. And that first cycle with the Wim Hof method, I'm always finding myself, my body saying, no, no, what are we doing? Like the body is like, why are we doing this? You don't have to do this. You have other ways to do this or not do it whatsoever. Like cardio, like, I don't know, my cardio wasn't ever that great. So every time I was trying to do cardio, my body was very loud. Like, we could stay sleeping. So same thing with breath work, right? That beginning, but if you go past that hurdle, that the very first minutes, 10 minutes or so, you go into this unbelievable space with so much healing in there for you. That's why I recommend it to everyone.
And I also wanted to talk about, because I know that, now we're all virtual, and you're doing so many amazing things on Instagram and social media to still continue people doing everything that you were teaching them in studio, but about new moon cycles. I know there's one coming up soon, and the kind of rituals that you do. And like for somebody that maybe doesn't exactly know what that is or what that means or why it's so important to do work during that time, how can you kind of explain that and how it's very helpful and how to learn about it?
Well, I first started doing full moon meditations again all the way back to when I was a teenager with my grandmother. Every full moon. I didn't know why. I didn't understand how come, nothing. But I know my grandmother, every full moon, she would say she would wake up at the time of the full moon, even if it was 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, to do a meditation to bless the world. So I already started, that's how I started with my grandmother. Service, meditation for service, meditation for prayers for the world on the time of the full moon. And then when I got into with my teacher, Master Shakusui, he would do them too. And so the principle of the full moons was like there's a peak of energy, right? The energy is actually coming from the sun. I'm going to the new moon, but I have to talk about the full moon before. So when the moon is becoming fuller, before whatever is the time of the moon, so say they say it's going to be at 3 p.m. or at 3 a.m. So as we are getting closer to that climax, there's a lot of energy coming in from the sun, and this is because of how the relationship between the moon, the sun, and the earth is. Like the moon is actually interfering less with the relationship with the sun and the earth. So there's way more energy coming in from the sun to the earth. And this is how usually, because most people are in a more erratic emotional way, that they're like there's more crime, or women that are about to give birth, they tend to give birth that day, or people tend to become more lunatic, or act out in the moon, and sometimes you usually control, but during the moon it's like, oh, you can't control what you're saying, whatever it is, right? But that's because our solar plexus is more active. And so we get, if you the way I like to explain it is that if you have cups, right, if you have several cups and you were to pour water over them, if you had a little cup and you had a bigger cup, which one gets the more water? So the bigger one, right? So if more energy is coming and your energy centers are like vessels, the one that is more active is going to be, or bigger, is going to get the most energy, and then it's going to affect you that way. So when you decide to do meditations on full moon, and you activate your heart, you activate your crown, and you also want to send blessings to others or prayers to others, then you become instead an instrument of service. Instead of letting the energy just sway you and swipe you and who knows what, then you allow for the energy to pass through you, promoting your well-being, at the same time helping your relatives, your friends, your community, on and on. And so that's been with me since a long time. But then eventually, and I always heard about the new moons and all of that, but I was too dedicated to the full moons. I was very like that. But then, the new moon, it marks a period of beginning, right? It marks a period. And women, we are so connected to the moon and to the moon cycles. And when we honor these cycles, especially as women, that's pretty powerful for us. So I wanted to be able to have an event that was dedicated to women, to the female body, to the empowering of the female, to the connecting, especially since I got into, started studying shamanic healing. So to empowering the divine feminine in you, your connection, our connection with grandmother, with our grandmothers, yes, with the lineage and the ancestors, which is something you mentioned before, but also to the connection with Mother Earth and the connection with the divine feminine, the feminine aspect of the divine, right? Because we often talk to the divine, to spirit or source as a father. So what's up with the mother? Right? So there's something missing here. So I wanted to create an event that was dedicated for the women, and nothing made more sense than the new moon. And the new moon is usually a time, this is how I see it, right? I mean, there's many approaches, but this is how I see it. The new moon is a time related to darkness. So there's no light on the sky, but light is always there. It's just an illusion. But the moon is not there. I mean, she's there, but the moon is not reflecting the light back to the earth. And we usually sort of fear darkness. I mean, there is dark energies, but that's not what we're talking about. Darkness in itself. But if we think about it, our first state as human beings in these physical bodies was in darkness. We were inside the womb of our mothers, and our first element was water. And the moon has the ability to affect the tides and the waters, every water, even the 70% water in your body, right? And so for me, the new moon ceremony became uh, uh, an event that I could actually honor the divine feminine and unite in a circle when we were not with COVID. We will make a circle, and that's why my space is more limited, because now I cannot make that circle and be closer. But to the circle, as in um, we are thinking of the circle as a mother, right? The circle is more inclusive. And in that circle, we are all the same. No one is higher, no one is lower. We are all the same. And in this, we create a sisterhood in which we'll heal each other and we will work with each other. And yes, I lead the circle because it's the event I'm creating, but I always work on making sure that every woman feels that she's part of the circle, and that one of my main intentions is obviously to heal um, ourselves as women, as individual women, as an individual woman, and as women in society. I read once a book that was so powerful and it stayed with me, which was Torkom. Is the author, and who is a spiritual teacher, and it's called Women Torches of the Future. And our role in society is really powerful, and our physical body is connected to the power of creation. And that is something that's been vetoed and no one really wants to talk about it. And now it's becoming in, right? So now is almost fashionable. And I tried to create an event that feels like a ceremony, that there's a sacredness aspect to it, and that when you come here, by the time you leave, you feel like something did happen, that there is healing, that you take something with you that you, if I don't see you anymore, you can use for you and for others. And everything I do, especially in meditations and these ceremonies, is all whatever I'm getting sort of, I don't want to use the word downloaded, but I really try connecting with this group and what this group means. I never know who is going to be the group. And when we started with this process with Corona, that was a little bit of a shock for everyone, right? So it was for me too, because I recently just opened here and I'm like, what am I going to do now? And after the integration of that, a few days, a few weeks, the first thing I knew is I had to continue my meditation. I never have failed on a Wednesday meditation. I mean, really, maybe once or twice, but I had to continue. And so I opened it on Instagram. And then the new moon came and I was like, what am I going to do? This is a very hands-on. Um, we make mandalas. These mandalas are very intentionable. Like, we have all these full intentions, and we work with music and we work with healing. So I didn't know. So I took the risk and I said, all right, we're going to do it in Zoom no matter what. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. So now that I'm back at the studio, I was like, what am I going to do now? Right? Like, I'm not going to leave women that, I have people from Brazil and Florida. And so now what I do is that I have the computer as part of the circle, and everyone in Zoom is in there, and the few women that are here, we're here. And yeah, we continue to work with that. And the whole thing is that you bring your own intentions for you, and you bring intentions for your family, and you bring intentions for the world. And we as women work as a unit to promote this healing, not just for ourselves, but for others too.
I'm so glad that you're doing that. And you continue to do that this way. I was going to ask you, because now is such a time where I feel like everybody needs healing. And I feel like everybody connects to different healing meditations in different ways. So how do you recommend, women in particular, how would you recommend that we find ourselves at this time, that we connect to our own divine energy and find our own healing power and discover what it is that we need to heal at this time, and do it in a way that's that's virtual, where we can't connect physically.
Yeah, I actually just recently posted that, like, separation. We've been so taught. We grew up in a world that separation is the thing, right? You are there and I'm here. So, and the beauty of technology is to show that wherever you are and whatever I am, we're still connected, right? And and we feel each other. Like, it's not ideal, you know. I love to give you a hug, but we can feel each other, right? We Because in energy we say energy follows thoughts, and whatever you think of, you magnify it and you become. And if the basic of distant pranic healing or distant healing is, if you're thinking of someone, no matter what that person is, that's where your energy is going to go, no matter what, you know, where that person is. For as long as that person is inside the earth, you are inside the energy body of the earth, right? And I also, this is just, I'm just building to the answer, right? So I also, um in my last meditation on Wednesday, I was talking about how we are not separate. That's one of the most important, if not the most important aspect to understand of your spirituality. When we say, if someone prays or if someone's belief in God, where is this God? Where is this source? Where is spirit? Where is the universe? And we usually think of the universe as out there,
Mm-hmm.
but and the universe is out there, and say, I have all my little things, this is the universe out here and this is the earth, you know, and the universe is here. But the truth is that that's not true. The earth is part of the universe, right? We are part of the universe. The closest thing in you, or to you, um, from you to the universe, if you were to touch it, is you. The universe is passing through you, and so is the earth, right? And so is the divine. This source, this primordial energy, this universal supreme God is not at the end of the universe. And then we pray to the end of that letter takes a long time to reach the end of the universe, when in reality that source spirit is also inside you. Is That's why in some religions they say God is omnipresent. That means inside of you too, inside of everything. And so the reason I'm saying that is because if we start understanding, especially through this process, that separation is only an illusion, all you have to do is close your eyes and think of the person you love and feel the love in your, and project the love in your heart as if you were actually with that person, and allow yourself to feel that hurt, that love, that heart. Your heart chakra is actually, you're gonna feel it just by saying it. We start feeling suddenly good because the heart chakra will activate. That person and you, there's no such thing as space in between, or nothingness in, like nothing. There's some, you are intertwined. And so with that said, I feel that this is a really powerful time to connect with your own, start as a meditation practice. And there's so many tools. And right now, tools for meditation, I mean, there are apps, there are YouTube videos, there's podcasts like this, there's hundreds and thousands of Instagram accounts and social media is everywhere. But minimum, the most important thing that you need for meditation, you don't need none of that. Minimum, you need you and your disposition to do it. And you saying, you know what, I don't know where this is gonna take me. I may not know how to do it, but all I need to do is create this space, meaning time, right? Create this space for me to just close my eyes and be with myself. Or like people will call it in society, be with your own thoughts, right? And some people will say, well, but I cannot stop thinking. But it's not about, that's the great mistake with meditation. It's not about not thinking, it's about being with whatever is going on in your mind, and you're just observing, just closing your eyes. And you have another tool that's so powerful, and you mention it, and it is being with your breath, right? Use your breath to be like the tour guide in this inner journey that you're taking, and just connecting with your breath. If you do that for 5 minutes, at least minimum, your energy is gonna settle. And when the energy settle, like in a river, when the waters, or a lake, or the ocean, when the water settles, then you can see through.
Mhm.
You can see with clarity. So if you let, with your breath, just becoming aware of your breathing, and every time you find yourself distracted, understand that that's normal. Don't criticize yourself. Drop the labels. Come back to your breathing over and over again. So what's happening? The water that was all shaking and turbulent now is going to become more and more settled, right? And with that, you're going to start hearing more of the messages from your true self. You're going to start seeing things with more clarity, and you're going to start just walking in a beautiful journey towards yourself, towards your true self. Then I would say challenge yourself to go a little beyond. Don't just go 5 minutes. 5 minutes is like you go to the jungle, and you go 5 minutes is you go in and you, oh yeah, I came to the jungle, and out. You really just wet your toes on that lake. So when you say I'm gonna do more, now you're really gonna enter into where the beauty is. So if it was like, I like to give examples to visualize it, right? So if you're going to the ocean, and it's very like turbulent again, and you were outside and you're like, oh, this is a lot, and you're like, I don't know that I can do this, and you're like going with the waves, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get out. But if you dive in, you're gonna find places of stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you see the ocean, if you were to dive, and even though it may be turbulent outside, when you dive in, you can see the fishes there. They're like not feeling the turbulence whatsoever. They're happy, and the farther down you go, the quieter it is. So at the beginning, you have all these thoughts and thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, and then you leave 5 minutes after. You're like, oh, that was intense. But if you allow yourself to go beyond, you will find places of stillness more and more and more. And that is very, I feel that to me, my meditation practice has been key in this process that we're all going through, to to keep my cool, to flow with things, because I don't know either like what's gonna happen, right? And there's so much information, and it's so difficult to filter. Everyone has something to say, everyone has an answer, and the answers are all different. And all I keep hearing when I come to my meditation is, aside from continue to do what you're doing with yourself, is just continue to tune in and to live from your heart. Lead my life from my heart. Just
Yeah.
tune in, and that has allowed me to flow and to not be in the stress of things. And of course, if I think about it, it could be stressful, right? We go like, oh, what are we gonna do? But it allows me to prime my energy over and over again every day. And in that way, I build my energy, as opposed to seeing my energy going like, until I crash. I don't want to crash. So I've been holding on to my meditations more than ever in these days. And it's helped me even improve my own practice after so many years, because it's like I didn't, for a moment, for a while, I didn't have so much to do. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna dive in, and I will dive even longer, you know. Now I didn't have to rush out, now I didn't have to do certain things. So for me, it's about that, and and just communicate and put your message out, and that's why I decided to allow for my social media account to. My goal is to just, I just want people, if I can, that they go there and they find a meditation, or they find something that inspires you, that, because life is rough out there. So the last thing I need is to also add to that. So I want to add to the peace, I want to add to the well-being, and sort of a little oasis in the middle of everything that's going on.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the reasons that we started this show to begin with, and why it's called Spiritual Spiral, is because we were like, whoa, we started this show at the beginning of quarantine, literally. And we were like, we're confused and we're feeling all of these different things spiritually. Sari and myself are both very spiritual people, but didn't have all of the knowledge. That's why we wanted to interview experts, because we're like, WTF is going on here, because it's beyond just a virus or this. Like, this is like biblical, kind of things. Like, I'm kind of getting the chills talking about it. So, I know that you're a very wise woman and you probably have other abilities. You're probably very in touch, probably with other people. I'm not sure if you consider yourself psychic or what else you can tap into, but when this all started to happen, as far as our lives being turned upside down, did you get any kind of sign or answer within yourself about why this was happening now, or what we were supposed to do? What is the purpose of this?
Well, it kind of it continues to transform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like everyone. I went through the whole motion too. Like I was in shock. I was about to do my grand opening here. Like I've been open for a while, but I was about to do my grand opening. I was like, oh, a week into 2 weeks before I had to close. So if one was in shock, and then I felt sad. I never really felt angry again. I guess because of the practice that I didn't really feel angry, but I was confused too. I was confused. But and even though I do have psychic abilities, but I never wanted to go and use them to see the future, right? Because I was trained again by someone, Master Choksui, that was so pragmatic in this. Like it's easier to create your future than to predict it, right? And so because every little change will create a different future. And so I always respected that so much, and so I never wanted to dive into that part. I just rather use it for feeling like if I'm going to work with you as a healer, and what can we do right now, what's coming up, and things like that. But in my meditations, I have to say that the one thing that kept coming to me as a voice, as an inner voice, when I asked why this is happening, like why and how, what do we do now, is just what I mentioned before. One was trust, and the other one was lead with your heart. And so for me, it was, I don't know if that was more of a personal message, but it helped me be able to tune back to my vision of journey here and my own spiritual career, as in process, like career, not just as work, but my process in my own spirituality. And trust was important because it's very difficult right now with so much information and disinformation and conspiracy theories and everyone saying something. And then came the other more social issues that we are going through. And if I let it, it will overwhelm me too, right? Because I'm also very sensitive to energy. So part of doing what I do requires sensitivity. So I had to really find a space of stillness, and from there ask, so what to do, what is this? And the only thing I could get is trust. And it's a constant message that I get: trust and live from the heart. And it kind of got defined to in like, and that's your role. For me, that's my role right now in society. My role in society may not be to voice out my views or lack of views about what's going on, for as long as I stay in love and I stay in the aspects of healing and peace, and to whomever you are or wherever you are and whatever you think of, we all need healing and we all need love and peace and sweetness in my heart. And that was the only thing I got from that. And that things, you know, this moment is like this thing going on, like this how you call those things in the countryside, like they look like hay turning around, like with the wind, like all branch. They create this thing, right?
Yes, I know exactly. I'm totally blanking on it. I know exactly what you're talking about. The
branches, and they're like going with the wind like that. Yes. So the situation right now, but beyond the situation, there's the whole countryside. And that's how it was shown to me. This is happening, and this is a process, and there is the politics of it, and it's a process. But we as humans, we're resilient. right? And Mother Earth is resilient. So obviously, that is in my shamanic community. That was maybe one of the a really important message to allow for Mother Earth to heal. But at the same time, there's other things that are happening, like in the Amazons, and that's not necessarily healing. They're using this as an opportunity to actually break havoc in the Amazon. So that's concerning. But but um, I hope that a lot of people got into that message that how we actually affect the earth. But at the same time, I remember posting this too. The earth does not need us. We need the earth, right? Because the earth, all it has to do is shake a little bit and we're through, right? So, but it's about coming in connection again, just living more from that, from the heart, and connecting and realizing we were going maybe too fast and maybe too much, and we were forgetting to tune in and to tune in with each other. Like people were forced to be with their families. In the beginning, they were like, "Okay, well, who are you?" Right? And to be able to settle as units, families, society, as community, as with a relationship with Mother Earth, right? So I think that that is very important. And sad to see though when people now go back, say, to the beach and they leave a disaster on the beach. It's like I don't know that people really did learn, but some people have, and that is important. So I think it's bringing people to, I think it has an aspect of compassion and awareness of others. Compassion and awareness of others. Because, like, say, the whole situation right now with mask or no mask, but it's all about having compassion and awareness of others, right? And hopefully, this is a moment in society that we develop that more compassion and awareness of others to understand that if you fall, I fall. If you fall as a human being, I fall. And we see it a lot in politics right now. There's a lot of that, without understanding that if you take the politics aside, you're a human. I am human too. And if you fall, I fall. So I might as well just heal this with you and understand that, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here with you, and let's help each other and let's bring more peace and healing. It doesn't matter how someone is. Like a person could be the worst person to you in their life, but at the end of the day, it's because that person needs healing. And that's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
That's pretty heavy, and that's a big, big challenge. But if at some point we can actually connect with our hearts and still pray, that maybe we cannot say, I mean, I bless you with love, but like there is a higher force, a higher source of energy, please bless this person with love. Because if that person heals his or her heart, then that person will be a great, great person, right? And so
Yeah.
more great person. And that's what I've gotten with all of this situation.
Well, that's beautiful. And that is an amazing note to end on. Thank you so much, Alejandra. And you are doing such special work, and that I've dived into a little bit myself. And I'm going to make sure that I continue to dive into your Instagram and your videos. So can you please tell our audience where they can find you and get everything that you're giving with so much love?
Thank you. And I'm mostly on Instagram at Malibu Meditations. And in Spanish, I do have a very little account. I used to be more active in Twitter before, but that's Luna as the moon, Luna, Luna underscore Alema, Alema. But that's for the Spanish speaking community. And my website that should be coming up anytime soon is I had to redo the whole thing because of this. So MalibuMeditations.com is not active right now, but it will be active. And you can find me also on Facebook at Malibu Meditations, but I'm not as active there as I am on Instagram.
Yes.
And I so appreciate what you girls are doing. Thank you so much because it's so important. I really think so. And this opportunity to be here with you, and I'm sure you guys are gonna, do great, better and better and better.
Thank you so much. And I love you, Sarah. I miss you. I wish I could give you a hug. And everyone, guys, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Spiritual Spiral Show. And we put our episodes on IGTV. And now we're on Apple Podcasts, actually, Google Podcasts, Spotify, a bunch of different things, and on YouTube as well. And you can follow myself, Sam Davidson, at SamD43 on Instagram, and Sari at The Savvy Scribbler. And we'll see you next week. Thank you. And thank you, Alejandro. It's been a pleasure.